Well, I didn't expect that. Last week, I made a video about Alexi because I think it's really important to share the information. His back catalogue has a ridiculous amount of good information for guitarists to use, apply to their playing, apply to their composition, apply to every area of their musicianship. And then, after I posted that video, news came out that he died. It really saddened me. It really shocked me. And I could say that I didn't see it coming, but there was a part of me that did. I was actually surprised about how many people commented and interacted with the video that I made last week about Alexi. Obviously, he has a massive influence over many, many guitarists, over many, many genres. And at 41 years old, is not here anymore. So this video, we're going to look at Alexi, a bunch of the stuff that he's done in his life, a whole bunch of philosophies and ideas that you can apply to your playing, your compositions, your everything, and just do what I can to honor a guitarist that I absolutely admire. I hope you enjoy. So as I mentioned last week, Alexi was an idol of mine. There's very few guitarists that I can think of that have such a good understanding of melody and rhythm and harmony and technique, and then meshing them all together and never letting one get lost behind the other. All of his stuff is so, like, your technique has to be tight to play it, and yet it's also beautifully melodic, and the chord progressions are something that move, which is so rare in metal. And there he is screaming with all these kind of stereotypical death metal things, you know, double kicks going for days and all this stuff, and he's got beautiful chord progressions and he's got gorgeous melodies, and all of this stuff is running constantly through his music. He's making an effort to make moments in every single one of his songs. It's just incredible. There's so few people that do that, and he's kind of in a league of his own. And it's not like this stuff started, 5 albums in for him. You listen to Lake Bodom on the first album. That was one of the first songs of theirs that I heard, and it just blew my mind. It took me years before I was confident enough to even attempt to play it. If you're one of those people who's just like, I can't play that stuff, give it a go, try. The more you try, the better you'll get. A lot of Alexi stuff can be taken and used as warm-up techniques or practice techniques, or take it and put it inside your solo. There are so many things that can be done, and I highly encourage you to play with it, because that's what Alexi was doing. He was playing with all that classical stuff that he knew from when he first started music. But you got to remember that Alexi started Children of Bodom when he was 14. Of course, it had a different name, Inearthed or something at the time, but he was young. Something Wild was released when he was 18 or 19 years old. For someone dying at 41 years old, he's got a 26-year musical career. This is really awesome, impressive, inspiring stuff. When he released Something Wild, I was 5, but now I'm 28. By the time he was 28, he'd already released a whole bunch of albums and was touring and doing what I really want to do with my life. But you look at that, in his career, there was close to 100 songs that were written for Children of Bodom over their albums, right? They were released over a 23-year period. That is an average of 4.5 songs written per year. Now, this does not include all the songs that were too crap to go on, or all the bonus songs, or whatever else, but this is just stuff that he was working on for Children of Bodom, 4.5 songs a year. And him being the main songwriter for those 100 give or take songs is just incredible. It's a crazy body of work and a huge achievement, and anyone should be proud of that. Naturally, I think I've been doing what a lot of you have been doing. As soon as you got the news, you just started listening to Children of Bodom over and over and over. Now, you got to think about how good this kid was. He was 18, and not only was he good enough to play Lake Bodom, he wrote it. Right? Now, I keep using that as an example because it's one of my very favorite songs of theirs. That to me is just incredible. It's much easier to play something that someone else has written than write it and play it really well yourself. And he could do those things. But the really interesting thing is, listening through his back catalogue, I'm finding more and more and more things about him that I didn't know. He recycles his own stuff on the same album. I'm going to play you a couple of examples here, and then I'm going to give you some tools to use so that you can start applying this and making your own music in this way. So Alexi was a master at reusing themes and ideas, right? And actually this happened more often than you'd think in the same album. I've got two totally separate examples here of two tracks that exist on the same album with very similar ideas. So similar that I think what happened is it was written once, there was a mistake made, and they made a new thing out of that mistake. Or not necessarily a mistake. Maybe it's just they wanted to slow it down or speed it up, but we'll go through them. So everyone kind of knows this theme, right? That's the theme used in Downfall, obviously. By sheer coincidence, it sounds surprisingly similar to, which is out of Hatebreeder. The songs aren't next to each other on the album, but they're both on the same album. If we put those together, we end up with, right? We've effectively got the same lick that is leading into different things. This is what I'm talking about with borrowing ideas or ghost writing. We're simply taking an idea that exists, whether it's in our own music or someone else's, and we're changing some factors to bring them apart so much that they're not necessarily recognizable, not easily detectable. However, they consist of more or less the same things. Second example is the main riff for Every Time I Die. Speed that up. We've got Bodom After Midnight. Once again, two different tracks off the same album using the same idea. If we play Every Time I Die at the speed of Bodom After Midnight, right? To me, they sound exactly the same. It's likely that Alexi wrote it fast or slow, then he was either being lazy and played it slower, or he got really excited because he loved the riff and he wanted to play it fast. He realized, hey, we can get two separate riffs, separate songs out of this exact same idea. And that idea is essentially long, short, 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 short until change. And the chord that finishes both of those notes off is the seventh. So, right, that's all that's happening in those. And that wraps up the guitar examples of this video. If you pay enough attention to stuff like this, you will notice this happening again and again and again and again throughout Children of Bodom's back catalogue. And all he's doing is he's borrowing that same information that happened in all of his classical background. So much of the stuff that he was learning when he was young was just applied. It's so simple to do, and that's why bands like Polyphia are famous, because they're going, okay, what is generic for hip hop? Put guitars on it. Make all of that stuff in one guitar and then harmonize that. Right? This is the idea that I keep talking about of conglomeration of two different things that aren't necessarily obvious, even though everyone knows that metal more or less stems from classical. But using this idea of taking what already exists and making something new with it, Alexi was a master of this. Okay? He was doing it with melodies, he was doing it with techniques, he was doing it with thousands of different things, and a lot of the stuff that you hear on the albums sounds to me like a picking exercise or something like that, where he's just gone, takes it really fast, puts a nice melody underneath it, and then all of a sudden you've got something that works really well as a picking technique and is something that you can use to practice your picking. But oh, hey, it's actually my riff. It's actually half of my album is just picking exercises, right? But done musically. Why not? Why not do that with your own stuff? And loads of artists do this, is they use their time to practice, to write new stuff so that they can practice techniques. That's apparently how Sweet Child of Mine was written by Slash. He was working on a picking exercise. Someone heard that, said, that's awesome. And then all of a sudden they formed Sweet Child of Mine around that idea that Slash actually never really cared for because it was just another picking exercise. Use that stuff. In saying this, I can't have a whole video on Alexi about his life, about what he was really good at, without talking about the drawbacks of the man. Now, of course, I didn't know him personally. It was not a hidden thing that Alexi had mental health issues. It was not hidden that he loved alcohol, did way too many drugs, worked way too hard, didn't really care about his body, and it was obvious. I mean, the guy looks 10 years older than he is and has looked 10 years older than he is for, I don't know, 20 years. Every single photo you see of him, he never looks like a youth because he's been abusing his body and his mind forever. So I unfortunately never got to see Alexi play live, and this is something that, it's not gonna haunt me, but it's just something that I wish was different. Now the funny thing is every person that I've said, man, I would have loved to be at that gig that you were at, where you saw Children of Bodom, every single person has told me, dude, it was only all right. Alexi was pretty wasted, it was pretty rough, you know, but it was cool to see them. And that is the story that I hear. You can look on YouTube, there are hundreds of videos of Alexi being drunk and not being able to play his own stuff, him stumbling around stage, him doing these things, right? Now this is a self-soothing mechanism. This is something so that he can live life in an easier way. And that makes it really hard for me as a fan, because it becomes a thing of, do I want to see Children of Bodom play live? Absolutely I do. Do I want to see Children of Bodom terribly wasted and not able to play their own music? Probably not. It would be kind of cool, but you know, it would be much nicer as a guitarist, someone who appreciates the technical side of what they play, because that is really their market, having that being fully realized live. That's what I want to see. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you're suffering problems like this, you're much better off going and seeing a counselor or a psychologist, or putting guitar down for 6 months, or doing something like that, so that you can actually repair and heal yourself so that you can keep living. Because there is no point in having success in one way, but not being alive to enjoy it. And that goes for so many artists who are alive, but unable to experience their own joy that should come from the success that they've achieved, like Kurt Cobain. Okay, he was someone who had mental problems. He needed to sort them out. He did not, right? All of a sudden, he's got all this money, he's got all this attention, he's got access to whatever drugs or women or whatever, alcohol, anything that he wants. And it's too much because he is not focusing on the most important thing, which is him. Alexi didn't do that either. And this is why Alexi is not with us anymore, right? I don't know what the specifics of his death are, but it stems from 20 years of abuse. I bet you there's no way that you would look like that if you hadn't had 20 years of abuse. But don't get me wrong, I am not trying to talk him down. I love Alexi. I think he's an inspiration and every guitarist should look up to him. This whole video is my tribute to him, where we explore who he was, what he did, and some things that you can take away from that. So the key takeaways that I've got are: make your music more melodic, make it more interesting for yourself and for your listener. So instead of just playing the one boring riff that goes on and on and on, change it up. Throw some, you know, squeals in there, throw some whatever in there to make it more interesting for both yourself and the listener. Write stuff out of technique, write technique out of melodies. Do everything that you can, but never lose sight. Don't make something that's so technically perfect that no one can enjoy it. Equally, don't make something that's so melodic that, you know, is just boring to your audience. You've just got to find the balance, enjoy the play. And as I spent a significant amount of time in this video talking about, is take his ideas, make them your own, right? You can't get your personality out of what you play. No matter how much you try, you are always going to shine through on that. So take bits and pieces, play around, mash two different things together, see what comes out. And then, of course, you think about it, as I mentioned, Alexi was writing at least 5 songs per year for 23 years, and that allowed him to have the career that he had. How many songs did you write in 2020, right? Pretty much all of us had more time on our hands than ever before. But how many songs did you write? If you want to write your own music, you've got to start by writing, okay? Write something, write as much as you want, write as little as you want, do whatever. But just put the metric there so that you have to achieve that, and make sure you achieve that in 2021. Equally, if you don't want to write music, you just want to be a sessions musician, learn 5 very complicated songs this year, or maybe learn 50, or set whatever metric you need to do to achieve your goals. Once you've done that, there is no way that you haven't made progress, and all you got to do is keep making progress. But before you do any of that, take care of yourself. Take care of those around you. If you see anyone that you feel is in need, help them. Make sure everyone gets through this so that you can get through this when you need it, okay? Alexi was one of those flames that was burning for twice as bright but half as long. And his flame is now out. So to close out this video, I've written a tribute to him. Thank you, Alexi.